All right. It is Lambo's World of Sports on a Tuesday featuring the Big Brother, featuring Satellite Sports Network. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about the NBA. The biggest trade that happened earlier today. We are talking about Dame Time, Damian Lillard, the guy that was loyal to the Blazers, but the Blazers they fell off. They couldn't really win a championship. All right, Damian Lillard got his money. He finally got traded. It wasn't to the Miami Heat. It was to the Milwaukee Bucks. Now that's a shocker because the Bucks weren't even in the conversations. The conversation was the Miami Heat for a while, and then last minute Toronto Raptors appeared up there. I don't know how the hell the Raptors gonna be up in there when there's no, they just fired their coach as well. They're in a rebuilding mode. Damian Lillard wants to get a chance to win a championship, and the Bucks are that team. Now, in the three-team trade, it includes what? The Bucks, the Blazers, and the Suns. I didn't expect the Suns to be a part of this trade. Let's go ahead and explain the depth of this trade and what could it mean for the Bucks. Are the Bucks in contention to compete for the NBA or the Eastern Conference Finals between Miami, Boston, and Philly? And are they in contention to possibly win the NBA championship?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. They just won the championship a few years ago, and they've done nothing but improve the roster. I mean, they had the number one seed last year. They just so happened to fold in the first round. Now, I'm not just pushing that to the side and say, that doesn't matter. It obviously matters that they lost in the first round, but they still earned the number one seed, So, they were already a top 3 team in the league, and they traded away Drew Holiday and, Grayson Allen. So you can obviously see the bigger loss there is Drew Holiday, but they're such a good defensive team, and a lot of that is because of Drew, but also they have, Middleton's a good defender. Giannis, obviously, great defender, and that's not it. They have more. I don't have the roster right in front of me, but, Dame doesn't bring a lot on the defensive end to the table, but I think out of any team in the league that was able to give up a little bit of defense, it was definitely the Bucks, especially in exchange for a guy that can put up 30 every single night, or more, as we've seen multiple times. The Blazers, I think, obviously they didn't get better, losing Dame, but for long term, I do think that it was a pretty good trade on their part, getting Ayton from the Suns, and then also getting Drew Holiday. Those are 2 great defenders. And they also made moves for Thibault from the Sixers, which, that was a big loss for that team because, he's a great defender as well. So the Suns have a lot of youth, and, now Drew Holiday being a veteran leader that doesn't take, 15, 20 shots a night. He's more of defense, like a defensive point guard. So it's cool to see, them bringing it more towards the youth movement. And they've really gone all in on that. They don't really have any other options now. For the Suns, it was a little weird. I agree with you. I didn't expect the Suns to be involved in it. I knew that, it's basically common knowledge at this point that DeAndre Ayton and the Suns weren't seeing eye to eye for a while. Tried to get him out before last season, it didn't work. And he played the whole year there. Trade deadline, we were thinking he would get moved. He didn't. So I understand moving him in that sense, but I don't know, they got good depth in, Grayson Allen is a good guard to have as a depth player. Nasir Little is a good forward to have as a depth player. And, Yusuf Nurkic is good, but he doesn't bring nearly the same on defense that Ayton can when it looks like he's actually engaged in the game. Because, a big thing with him was he seemed lazy on the court and he'd get dunked on, or someone would score around him that just shouldn't happen. So when he seems like he's actually engaged in the game, he brings way more to the table defensively. And, he was obviously a number 1 pick for a reason. they see like all around potential in him that I don't think the Suns fully tapped. So, maybe it's a new start for him up in Portland, but for the Suns, I think they lost, which they're probably going to lose anyway, but they lost a really good piece. And they replaced it with a bunch of depth. They don't really have a big name, big man anymore, but they've got big names everywhere else. So we'll see. It definitely shakes things up in the East because I think, the Celtics had a good case for being the number one team going into the year. I think the Sixers honestly took a step back from their roster this past year to what it is now. So I think like for the East, this definitely puts Milwaukee still at the top, in my opinion.
Milwaukee's still at the top. Well, that sounds nice. But you did mention that they were the number one seed just to get bounced by the Miami Heat. As much as I hate to say it, I think the Miami Heat are probably maybe the number one or number two team to watch out for. They made the finals. They almost blew the Celtics series up 3-0. But even though Miami Heat doesn't have good starts, they've been very consistent since the arrival of Jimmy Butler. The Bucks, talent's always been there. Defense has always been there, but it comes to stalling on offense. And I have to put some of that blame on Giannis Antetokounmpo because it comes down to him not making free throws. He can't make certain jump shots in crunch time. And especially when you have a Chris Middleton that's been hurt the last 2 years, it kind of affects you. So I'm glad that they have Middleton, who signed an extension this offseason. You got Damian Lillard. You got Giannis Antetokounmpo. So it's great. But I think the Milwaukee Bucks' weakness is going to be off that bench because Drew Holiday is a huge piece that you lost, even though he was a starter. Grayson Allen wasn't really that big of a deal. I mean, don't really like him. Never liked him come out of college. He's a very dirty player, especially what he did to, UNC players in the past and all this other stuff, this tripping and stuff. But the Bucks is nice, like I said, but I think when it comes to playoffs, I feel like they'll just crush around. They have a chance to pass the first round, maybe, but I know I did say that they're a threat to the Celtics, the Sixers, and the Miami Heat, but it just has to come down to consistency. But also it comes down to if Giannis Antetokounmpo will sign a long-term extension with Milwaukee after considering, the direction of the team was not where it used to be before Mike Budenholzer got fired. So could he stay long-term? That's if Damian Lillard stays long-term. I think he has 2 years left on that Blazers contract. So that depends. I think it's 2 years, see how that goes. But there could be some direction as far as Giannis Antetokounmpo stays long-term. Like I said, Damian Lillard is 33 years of age. He looks great. I think at minimum he has 5 more years. Just because, the patience. He wants to win a championship. He doesn't want to be one of those players that doesn't win. He averaged 32 points a game last year, 7.5 assists in 58 games. And then he scored 71 points against the Rockets. So, like I said, the Blazers, they did the correct thing. They still have Scoot Henderson with number 2 overall pick. But, the Bucks have a chance, but I know for a fact that I wouldn't put my money on it because it's going to come down to Giannis. Even though you have Damian Lillard can't do everything. He did everything with the Blazers, despite losing a C.J. McCollum and a Rodney Hood back then as well. But it comes down to Giannis at this point. So they're the 4 favorite to win the championship behind the Denver Nuggets and the Boston Celtics and the Phoenix Suns. I don't think the Phoenix Suns should even be third in the consideration, despite them taking a little bit of step back. And they have Frank Vogel as the new head coach. So it's nice, but I'm not confident. Not confident at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm looking at their roster right now. They added Malik Beasley, who we saw he was a great addition to the Lakers last year. They got Goran Dragic as a point guard 2. They've also got Pat Connaughton that could be coming off his depth. Got Myers Leonard, who we obviously know he had to take like a year off because he said some bad stuff. He's a good bench center to have. You still have Brook Lopez, who's a great shooter, stretches the floor as just strictly as like a center, but plays in the corner and in the paint. Robin Lopez, another big in depth. You've obviously got Chris Middleton in the starting lineup, but you've also got Bobby Portis, who's a great role player to come off the bench as well. So I don't think and Jay Crowder, of course. So I don't think that they have a depth problem at all. And I do think that this trade for Dame was like their way of answering Giannis's public claims that he doesn't know about his future with the team because he doesn't know the direction that the team is going if they still want to try and win championships. So, I mean, this is definitely a championship winning move. So I do think that this was obviously, if you can get Dame, you get Dame, regardless of who you are, what team, stuff like that. But I do think that this move right now is a direct answer to Giannis's concerns. And I definitely think that with Giannis already being pretty vocally loyal to Milwaukee, like he said he doesn't want to leave, but if he feels like he has to, he will. This would do nothing but strengthen his loyalty in my mind. And the team's got depth. So, I mean, I think they can definitely compete like top 3, top 4 team. I mean, they were just the 1 seed last year, and I think that overall the team got better. Obviously, losing Drew Holiday is big, but like I mentioned, like they've got so many good defensive pieces on this team that I think this is the one team that could afford to lose a defender like Drew just because they're so deep when it comes to defense.
Well, like I said, 82 games. They've been the number 1 seed. They'll probably be one again if it's not for the Boston Celtics inconsistencies after the All-Star game. But we'll see how that goes as long as the lines. The NBA season, like I said, is about 6 days away, I think, as far as preseason, I think. So I think it starts like October 5th, maybe. So we're a couple days away. The regular season starts October 22nd, whatnot, close to Halloween. But in the next episode of Lemons Water Sports, we're going to Recruiting Wednesday. We are going to talk about the SEC and Arkansas football. All right. Arkansas has been a okay team that can win you 7-8 games, but they're not the team that you expect them to be winning the SEC championship. So we will go over the recruiting of Arkansas, and we'll see if they can improve their rebuild their program as far as recruits, and can they compete in the SEC with the Alabama, A&M, LSU, and Texas once they join the SEC. We will talk about that in the next episode of Lambo's Water Sports. Recruiting Wednesday. We'll catch you in the next 5 minutes.